Everything in life is story. Story is how we share ideas, politics, vision, fantasies, experiences, even our hopes and dreams. The Gibson Gazette is a podcast show devoted to story. Those we consume, those we tell ourselves, and those told to us. How you doing, Anne Marie?
Hello, hello. Good night, morning, evening, whenever you're tuning in. I'm doing well, LMG. I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. So I'm L. Michael Gibson, co-host for the Gibson Gazette, and my co-host is AMC, or Anne Marie Collymore. So why don't we go ahead and get started with check-in? What stories have you been consuming over the last couple of weeks that you want our audience to know about, and that we're not going to go too deep on today, but we just want to make sure we touched on?
All right. Well, my check in today is it might be a tad little late, but y'all will know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about DJ Cassidy's legendary BET Pass the Mic after party show that he did after the NAACP Awards a couple of weeks ago. Now, for those of you who do not know who DJ Cassidy is, he is a huge record producer, tour, celebrity DJ. He does a lot of the big, grandiose parties. I'm talking about the Obamas and Oprah and all of those cats. He DJs those parties. He's, well sought after. So he came up with the concept of pass the mic during the pandemic, and it has been amazing from jump. Um, what he would do is basically he would jump on the ones and twos, have his 24 karat gold mic in front of him, and literally pass it along to some of his musical heroes, whom, of course, we know and love because they're all artists that we grew up listening to. So a lot of the cats from the 90s and did he have an 80s? I'm not even sure, but it was more in the 90s, 2000s kind of dig, and he's already had over 200 artists from hip hop and R&B, so that's really really cool. Now, for this route, he decided to go the reggae route, which was absolutely sick. So I have to shout out for my Caribbean Jamaican massive. And he took us back to the 90s. The 90s, man. I was butterflying and pepper seeding and carrying on in front of my TV like I was at a fete, y'all, okay? So he had Sister Nancy, which is big, 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 big things because Wata Bam Bam, everybody knows Wata Bam Bam. Even if you don't know reggae, you know these tunes. You know what I mean? You were at a club, these tunes were bopping. So you had Nadine Sutherland and Terra Fabulous with Action. He had Supercat with the Rude Boy Youth. Maxi Priest, Close to You, Inika Mosey, Here Comes the Hot Stepper. He had Snow, guys. He had Snow. Canadian white boy in pharma business, okay? He had Shaggy and Rayvon, Junior Reed, Barrington Levy. Listen, Dennis Seaton from Musical Youth. It was wicked. It was live. And I'll leave it at that because if I start going into it, I'm going to start going into the importance of reggae and sound systems and its foundation and the correlation to hip hop. And I can go on, and I will not. But that was so dope. It was wicked. It was wicked. It's well worth the watch. So if you go to BET's either their Instagram or you can go search it on YouTube and you'll find all of the clips there. They were fabulous. Check it.
All right. And don't forget to let people know you got a YouTube page for a video on a panel about the importance of reggae and hip hop, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, thank you for reminding me. Okay, I gotta big myself up sometimes.
Yeah,
If you check out
exactly.
my YouTube, if you check out my YouTube page, you'll see I was included on a panel. I was actually moderating the panel, and it was about dance hall and you know its importance in the foundation of hip hop and sound systems and just everything and how it overlaps and all of its glory, everything, just hip hop wise. We were talking about sound systems. Anybody know Bass Odyssey? If you know Stone Love, if you know any of them kind of sounds, then that would be the panel for you. But check it out though, because it was a really interesting conversation. Very, very interesting conversation.
And for those of us who are not Canadian or Caribbean or into reggae, snow is not referring to cocaine or actual snow. I just want to make sure I put that out
Righto.
there because you get really excited about snow, and I don't want the people to get confused about why you were excited about snow.
Right,
So,
right. True things. Not good.
well, as for me, I finally got to see two films that I had avoided in the theaters because I didn't want to catch Omarion's Omicron back in
Mm,
December.
mm, mm.
One of which was West Side Story, and the other was Spider Man No Way Home. Now, for those of you who may be too young or underexposed by your parents to the Broadway legend that is West Side Story,
Right.
West Side Story was a musical that happened in the 1950s about rival gangs, the Jets versus the Sharks, that were one Puerto Rican and one was Polish, mostly white. Um, and so the musical was music by Leonard Bernstein, lyrics by Stephen Sondheim, choreography by Jerome Robbins, and book by Arthur Lawrence. The musical, as a Broadway show, was very controversial when it came out. It was a moderate success, but not really a hit until the 1961 movie, directed by Robert Wise and co directed until he got fired by Jerome Robbins, who directed all of the choreography scenes. He did manage to get most of those choreography scenes in the can before he lost his job. In
Thank
any
God.
case, yes, thank God indeed,
Hmm.
because it gave me something to compare Steven Spielberg's to 2021 version of it, which just hit Disney Plus in the last week or so for streaming. So those of us who did not get to see it in the movie theater got to see it, this new 2021 revival of it with a book by Tony Kushner, or a screenplay in this instance. Um, for me, Ansel Egert ruined the musical for me, not to the degree that say Russell Crowe did for me, Les Mis, but he was mediocre. His songs didn't soar. Um, he, average singer. Unfortunately, Tony has lots. He played Tony, the love interest, the Romeo in this Romeo and Juliet story, and his performance was flat. He was just mayo. He was milk toast. He was he was
Oh man.
he was white bread. Like it couldn't have lacked more flavor. And the original
Mm-mm.
Tony, in at least the Robert Wise film, was earnest and young, and you could understand why Maria was excited or captivated by him and his enthusiasm, and why she might even be willing to forgive the fact that he kills her brother in a gang fight. Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Nobody believes Ansel Egert is can be forgivable for killing their brother. Like, it just doesn't fly. Tony Kushner's script also made some choices that made the overall narrative make more sense, and even kind of updated it a bit. Like, it was a more believable story. But
Mm-hmm.
because he added extra lines of dialogue and changed some scenes around, and into the scenes from the original Broadway show were the sequencing. So some people might have been confused who are more familiar with only the sequencing of the scenes from the film. But it made every scene longer, dragging the pacing. Spielberg as the director was hit or miss for me. Hit was that his world building was peerless. Like, you were in 1950s New York, while going through their own period of urban renewal, their own gentrification process, where buildings are being torn down, and these
Mm-hmm.
poor folks kind of trying desperately to fight for a blighted space that they don't own. Sound really familiar? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and in that way, West Side Story kind of stays very fresh, in that you still have to this day gangs fighting over land that they don't even own. And Kushner's script really kind of hits that home. Um, but some of the dance sequences that Spielberg recorded in this one,
Mm-hmm.
other than America, interestingly enough, America was flawlessly done, and it
Of
actually
course.
is what probably got Ariana DeBose as Anita the Academy Award nomination for this year. because
Mhm.
that is her absolute moment to shine, as it was Rita Moreno when she won
Right.
her Academy Award for the same performance. But a lot of these dance scenes throughout the film receive kind of MTV music video edits where you get parts of the body and then it cuts to another part of the body and another part of the body. And then you saw a group shot and then you cut back to another part. When you do that, you lose lines, you lose the beauty of the body in form, the body in group motion. And it's like you don't trust that the movement themselves is interesting enough to keep the eye. So you have to
Mhm.
keep cutting and editing in this very frantic way. And
Choppy,
while
yeah.
we are used to seeing dance done that way for music videos, one of the strengths of Jerome Robbins' direction is that you got to see the full body in all its beauty and brutality of his particular choreography for West Side Story in the original film. And I felt like it kind of undercut the choreography in this instance by filming it this way.
Mm.
Overall, it wasn't a bad movie experience because every single person in the cast except Ansel gave their Abe their absolute best. You know, they were absolutely incredible. David Alvarez as Bernardo was brilliant. We already have given a shout out to Ariana DeBose. You know, both of them deserve whatever they're getting in terms of shine.
Mhm.
We just had Edgar, and you know nobody really cares about Baby Driver anymore. Like his ever since these sexual misconduct allegations have come out, um,
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
undercut whatever kind of appeal or popularity he's had. He's not canceled because he's got a new limited series, Tokyo Dreams, I think it is called, that's coming out
Yeah.
soon, and
Mhm.
already the knives are out about him and his performance. Um, you know, Baby Driver doesn't need to be in everything, and casting agents need to get into it. Whatever was happening for him before that time has passed. So
But
the
I
other thing
mean,
was, you know, Spider-Man No Way Home. I loved it. There was nothing negative I have to say about it whatsoever. It was flawless. It made me laugh. It made me hold my breath. It teared me up a
mhm.
bit. All the things were felt. The fight with Doc Ock on the freeway was high level suspense with a sister, an actual middle aged sister at that, was the damsel in
Yes.
distress that needed rescuing, right? Like she was just a regular sister, and that was
Mhm.
amazing. Like it was great to be able to see that moment. The Inception level multiverse fight with Doctor Strange gave me all the feels that I wanted. The upgrade on classic villains like Sandman and Electro, not to mention a very sensitive portrayal by William Dafoe as Norman Osborn and the Hobgoblin, were all well cooked and never overdone. We also even got to see the trio, you know, so old heads like me got to see Toby Maguire looking
Yeah.
aged. And I was like, damn, you know, that milk curdled. And then I realized that looking in the mirror that my milk too had curdled. And neither one of us looked like we did when we were in our 20s and
Oh.
spry, right? And then you had kind of
Mhm.
Andrew McCarthy, who's also having a moment in the sun thanks to Tick Tick Boom, which I've talked about already and said it was
Yeah.
flawless and amazing, and everybody should go watch that on Netflix. He's up for an Oscar this year as well for that amazing performance. And of course, Tom Holland, who manages to do some of the best eye acting ever. There's a final scene in this where he just emotes with his eyes and you want to cry for him and hug him, you know, over
He's
a
such a little
choice.
cutie.
But you know, more than that, he's super talented.
He
And you know,
is. He is.
you know, and this we're at a time in which a lot of like hater directors whose films are not as successful as these Marvel properties or DC properties, you know, have been hating on the whole superhero thing and trying to act like
Yeah.
real acting
Yeah.
isn't happening on them. You know, and then you have scenes with Tom Holland and Zendaya, and it's like, yeah, that's not, you know, if you create the space, those actors show up and shine, and they give
Mhm.
just as good a performance in these films as they would in something that's considered more prestige. So, you know, so those are my kind of check-ins. Those are the things I've been checking out, and talk a little bit more about some films that I'm loving when we get to I'm loving it.
Sweet.
You know, what did you think about them? Did you get a chance to check out West Side Story or Spider-Man No Way Home?
West Side Story, I was apprehensive exactly because of how you broke it down. I didn't want it to taint the classic in my brain. I'm gonna have to, eventually set out. When I saw that it was coming out and Spielberg was behind it, I was like, I don't know. I said, okay, I'll wait. And now that you say it's on Disney, I didn't even realize it was on Disney. So I'll, maybe add it to my queue or something. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, I'm not in a rush to see it. I thought I'd be excited to see it, but I'm really not. Spider Man, I have absolutely nothing bad to say about it at all. At all. I loved Spider Man from beginning to end. It was fantastic. They need to make a four. I don't know. Figure it out. Um, Garfield and Toby and Tom were just fantastic. It was like Spider-Man magic. It was
Oh, thank you for
awesome.
correcting me. Yes, Andrew Garfield. I'm sorry, I
It was
said Andrew
magic.
McCarthy. I mean,
Oh
I
yeah,
went all the way back to the Breakfast Club, Andrew.
I didn't even realize that. I hung on to Andrew.
I
That was
really
good.
showed my age. Andrew McCarthy is like ready for a wheelchair these days, and
Oh my
we right
gosh,
we done put him in Spider
Breakfast
Man
Club.
suit.
That's hilarious.
Yes, Andrew Garfield. My bad. I'm sure somebody caught it earlier and was like, "Who?"
Who?
Um, right.
Yeah, but no,
So
it was great. It was great. I second everything you say. It was fantastic. My son thought it was fantastic. I even loved, how they, amped up Jamie Foxx. He's not old and crotchety, He's looking like a good Electro. Aged pretty well if you want, or whatever happened to him. But, looked pretty decent. Had some pretty good jokes in there. Sandman, everybody like the comedy and the drama. Everything just it meshed beautifully. It was great. It was awesome. I have no qualms about anything else that went on there. It was great.
well, that's awesome. I guess I also probably should put on this caveat about West Side Story. I have been
Mhm.
seeing in my timeline that regular folk love it. You know, critics have pointed out the flaws of Tony and how it undercuts the film, but even critics have said, otherwise this is a really stellar film. And I can't, say, this was a bad film. Like I said, I gave it a B. Out of in my rankings, but there are a lot of people who have loved this version and were not put off. For me, songs like Maria and Something's Coming have really personal, and even tonight have some personal resonance to me because I played Lieutenant Rank in the high school production of West Side Story. Robert Wise is one of
Ah.
my favorite directors, from films like The Setup, this. He's just done some incredible work over the years, including some amazing musicals. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. I just found his work to be really hard to compete with. Other than the fact that the only reason I would remake West Side Story is for the Puerto Rican representation, right? Like, so you finally
Right.
got
Yeah. Yeah.
actual Puerto Ricans, not white folks in brown face,
Righto.
wearing Lena Horne's Egyptian magic from Max Factor,
Oh
right? Like,
man.
so
Max
we
fact. Lord have mercy.
so we actually got Latinos playing Latinos, a novel idea.
Imagine.
So I think that, and the script tried to correct for some of the more racially biased
Racial.
issues, cringeworthy lines that
Yeah.
were in the original film and the original book by
Hmm.
Arthur Lawrence. So, I think that, those were reasons, but yeah. I don't know. I
Yeah.
didn't really see, like, I didn't feel like the Puerto Rican community really embraced this either. I feel like there was lots of complaints about it not being enough dark skinned Latinos in this too, just like in the Heights. Neither
Damn, that
one of them seemed
heights.
to get
Yeah.
a big turnout from the Puerto Rican or Latin American community in America. So,
Hmm.
we'll
Hmm.
see. Well, all right,
Yeah.
we're gonna switch it on up to our next segment, which is loving it. These are the stories that are positive, that we absolutely love and recommend people check out. So, AMC,
Hmm.
hit us up with the story that is making you excited.
Okay. You guys are gonna raise your eyebrow to this one, but bear with me. All right. So, what has me loving it this week is the Sports Illustrated Swim Search finalists.
Oh my God.
I
Is it
swear to God,
1992? I feel like, what is this, 85, 92? I feel like this is a very, what's happening
I'm
today with this
taking it back.
episode?
We are
I feel like the
going
last
back.
time we cared about this was when Tyra Banks was on there with her giant boobs. Like,
Yes, that is. You are absolutely correct. You are right. I'm not even gonna lie. And this is the thing. So I'm going back in this more for sentimental reasons because you'll hear me mention it all the time. So when it comes to sports, that was my dad and I. That was our bonding thing. So I love sports. I always laugh and I say play sports. They said because now it's like oh my ankle, oh my knee, everything hurts. I'm old and everything hurts. So the sports thing, I was deep in it, deep in it. I played ball, I ran track all the way up to college. So I'm going to preface this whole thing with representation matters because, as LMG just said, the last time that we really got excited about, the swimsuit search was like when Tyra was on. So growing up, the Sports Illustrated magazine was one of the staples, the magazine staples in my house. Um, excuse me, especially with my dad, he was on to his football and his basketball. I was into brackets for March Madness. I was into everything. So Sports Illustrated always kept me on my toes. There were no shortage, of course, of white bodies and faces on the cover of this magazine
no
at
shortage.
all. No shortage at all. And the issue that always caught my eye was always the swimsuit issue, of course, because for me, girl, um, growing up, I'd like to see women. And of course, there was no reflection of anybody looking like me until Tyra came on in 1996. And even when she was first on the cover, she was with a group of women. Her solo cover came in 1997. So fast forward to now, we've seen Naomi Osaka, we've seen Danielle Harrington, even Megan the Stallion was on it.
Oh
I think it
wow.
was last year or 2 years
Okay.
ago. And Lena Bloom, she was the first trans to land on the cover, which is pretty inspiring. So
I
every
missed
now and
all of that.
then, did you really? I remember when
Yeah.
those covers came out, and everybody was like, "Wow!" I was like, "Holy shit, that's pretty cool." So every now and then I tend to check and see, okay, who's coming up on who's on the issue, blah blah blah, just to, check on the finalists. And this year they have intelligent, fierce, gorgeous ass and a diverse crew of women that are finalists. And I feel sorry for the judges. There's a beautiful brown skinned actor. She's a nonprofit executive, and there's a physicist, dark skinned, chocolate hued black woman. She's a travel ICU nurse. Then we have another beautiful woman with her natural twist out. She's a TV host and YouTube personality and a model. I was like, this is bomb. This is lovely. The fact that there's so many different beautiful colors and hues, and it's not just white, 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 like when I was growing up, which is great. So the blurbs don't really tell you much about the finalists themselves, since they usually go deeper if they happen to win. But in the meantime, I'm happy and I'm celebrating the sheer fact that they made it this far. Like, I mean, that's huge in itself. And then you have a sprinkle of other beautiful women in the mix too, of course. But I love how the pages are consistently including women of color now, and black women again, as I said, all the ranges of hues and beauty and of who we are, regardless of your gender. It's a beautiful thing to see. So it's lovely when things are done intentionally without being performative. So I my hats off to Sports Illustrated, because I was clapping. I was slow clapping. I was like, all right, okay, this is pretty cool. My father would have loved that. So yeah.
I wonder though. I mean, so listening to you talk and being enthusiastic about it, it struck me that this is really such a Gen X and baby boomer thing, right? Like if you're a
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
millennial or you're Gen Z, I wonder if it's even possible for you to appreciate what certain magazine covers meant to the culture, to the community, to Americans as a whole, like when Life
Yeah.
magazine was a major thing and Gordon Parks
Oh my
photography
gosh.
was there, right? Like, and it was like,
Yes.
oh my God, a black photographer got his stuff on Life. I mean, Life doesn't even
Mhm.
exist anymore. I don't think. I
Nope.
haven't seen,
No.
right? Like, or Time magazine, Man of the Year, Woman of the Year,
Yes.
Person of the Year. Like, those were such events. Or People magazine, Sexiest Man Alive.
Mhm.
I mean, like
Mhm.
they still do like media around them. They do a little PR, but the
It's not like it
societal
used to be.
impact, right?
Mhm.
I mean, and along those lines is the Sports Illustrated magazine cover, which was like this annual thing. Even as a kid, I remember getting them and taking them to school because this I was trying to be popular with the straight boys, right? And as a teenage boy, and teenage boys like things like the Sports Illustrated swimsuit
Of
issue,
course.
or Playboy or Penthouse. There's all kinds of things that I took that probably would have their parents' hair stand on end. But yeah, there wasn't, and now magazines, I mean, don't mean anything anymore to people. I mean, even the
Mm-mm.
September issue of Vogue doesn't have the impact that it had a generation ago. It's still important,
Yes.
especially for that industry.
Yeah.
Um,
That's the
but
Bible.
yeah, I mean, like you being on Sports Illustrated swimsuit could make your career. Like that was one of the big gets if you were a
Mhm.
model, if you were a supermodel.
Mhm.
Like that was what kind of elevated your profile from just being a regular smegular model that didn't nobody know to being a
Right.
household name, right? Like, so yeah, it's crazy to me how much the culture's changed and how much magazines and their impact has changed generationally. So,
Yeah.
I could see,
Yeah.
like I said, somebody younger being like, why are we having a conversation about a magazine cover?"
Right.
Right.
And not only that, the fact that we don't consume magazines like we used to. Everything is online. So it's not
Yeah.
to say all of those magazines you were discussing, those were all in my house too. They were all staples in my house. Life, my dad always bought Time. And so he had subscriptions to all of those. Again, subscriptions. Who the hell does that anymore?
I
Nobody
mean, this
does
is why
that,
we all thought
right?
we were going to win Publishers Clearinghouse, right? Because we had magazine subscriptions so that we could get in the sweepstakes, every
Right?
year. Again, things that are of the past. I mean, now when you get an email
Hmm.
from Publishers Clearinghouse, it goes into the delete file immediately. You don't even open it.
Okay. I'm not waiting for Ed McMahon. I'm good.
Right. Like, whew, talk about some stuff that are in a time capsule.
Capsule.
Uh,
Yeah.
yes. I mean, and there's still moments like, recently Nene Leakes and her wife were on the cover of Essence, and, that meant
Whoa, whoa,
something to
whoa,
the
whoa,
culture.
whoa, child! You said Nene? You want Nene to come
I
for
mean, not
you?
Nene. Oh, I'm sorry. Ooh, see, this is what 47 does to you folks. Niecy Nash, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
I mean, but look, Nene ain't above it, ain't beyond it. Child, please.
Well,
Don't get me started. Any celebrity, don't.
mm-mm, mm.
I'm never surprised if I hear a story of some kind of bisexual behavior from a celebrity. But in this
Gee,
instance, we were actually talking about Niecy Nash and
yes.
her wife. So excuse me for that. But yeah, I mean, when their Essence cover kind of made the rounds for a day or two on the blogs and on the social media.
Mhm.
So I think there's still like moments like that, but it's much harder
But it's
to
not like
like hit.
And it's not like we had because I remember like sometimes when I see Danielle Smith, big up to Danielle, when she's posting pictures on her Instagram of covers that she did on Vibe, and I'm like, man, I sat on that Maxwell cover for like a long time. I had it, I collected those things and I had them. I finally had to kind of let go and leave them behind when I had initially moved to Toronto because I'm like, how am I going to ship this all here? And I didn't have a place or anything. So I had magazines galore. So the same way you were talking about when we first started the podcast, LMG was saying that he shipped all his entire collection with him, of course, which, I give you props for. But man, I had to let go of a lot of different magazines. And that time Maxwell was on, he was on Essence, he was um on Vibe, he was on Interview. I had all of those magazines. So it's not the same when you have it and it's like tactile, and it's literally in your hand, and you has the doggy ears, and online and consumption and having it in your hand are two totally different vibes, man.
I'm
Totally.
actually mad. So, someone else packed my house for me and they were given explicit instructions of what to prioritize. And
Mm-hmm.
and it was like if it didn't, it's only a 30-foot truck and y'all like 30-foot truck and you can get your whole house in there. No, I have that much junk. And so I didn't realize until fairly recently that one of the things that didn't make it into that 30-foot truck was a case that I had of Vibe magazines, um, Ebony Mail magazines that kind of were
Mm-hmm.
had iconic covers because I was going to
Mm-hmm.
frame those one day. You keep telling yourself, "Oh, I'm going to frame these one day," because I thought they would
Yeah.
make good conversation pieces. And like D'Angelo, the first time he's on Vibe is
Yes.
gorgeous. Like it's an amazing cover. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and Janet Jackson on Rolling Stones, right? With these
Mm-hmm.
are there are some iconic covers that really could go on your wall as art. I mean, that
Yep.
they now would qualify. I mean, they qualified back then, but magazine covers were kind of felt disposable. But today, those would be rare, and you would want them on your wall. So I was pissed when that was one of the things I realized didn't make it to Mexico with me. But we should
Yeah.
probably move on. Like we didn't had a whole conversation about these
On
magazines.
magazines.
Right, but I think it's important, like, that there is a generational thing about, the importance of magazines and where they fit in the culture. I mean, because for all intents and purposes, they don't really exist in the way that they did,
Right.
you know.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's some titles that are still clearly on newsstands, but not like it was back in the day.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Nope.
So my loving it is gonna be short, especially after that. I loved the Adam Project on Netflix. If you like Ryan Reynolds, this
Mm-hmm.
gives you a
I
double
sure do.
dose. No, that sound like that sketch. That sound like that was for some other reasons other than his comedic timing. See, uh, if you like Ryan Reynolds, this gives you a double dose of his unique brand of shady cynicism, hiding a closet optimist heart. We've seen him do this well in works like Deadpool and Free
Mhm.
Guy, and seen him
Mhm.
shit the bed with it in flicks like R.I.P.D. and
Mm-mm.
Green Lantern. The less said about Green Lantern, the better.
Yeah.
Um, but here in the Adam Project, it works. And even though he's almost robbed in every scene by the upstaging mini me of 12-year-old Walker Scabell. So Walker Scabell had only appeared. This is I recently saw this. Had only appeared in like one middle school play
Yep.
before this, and also had memorized the entire script of like Deadpool
Deadpool.
2
Yes. I thought
when he
that
was
was
11,
awesome. Mhm.
right? And today he gets to star with, I guess, one of his idols is a 12-year-old playing a younger version of Ryan Reynolds.
Mhm.
um I was asked if the work was kind of Steven Spielberg, ET level.
Mhm.
So we have to remind people of the goodness of Steven Spielberg after me kind of talking shit about West Side Story. But and I was like, nah, it's good. But ET is iconic. I wouldn't say the Adam Project
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
iconic. This is more like Spielberg Super 8 level, which wasn't bad. It
Mm.
was a good film, but it isn't a forever classic. Nobody's gonna rattle off Super 8 off the top of
Right.
their head when they start rattling off their favorite Steven Spielberg films, right? Like,
Mhm.
this is just a great time with family, with a message about the often complicated relationships between fathers and sons. There's a very sappy moment near the end. I'm not going to spoil it for people, but it had me a little teary. Um, and
Oh,
usually I have a deep question to ask about a property, but this isn't that. This is just good old popcorn entertainment, and I had a ball with
okay.
it. Did you
Nice.
get a
I'm
chance
gonna
to see
it's
the
I'm
Adam
gonna watch it.
Project?
No, no. I again, I do love Ryan Reynolds for lusty things and for his act.
Not
No,
lusty thing.
lusty things. Yes, yes, lusty things. And I'm just gonna keep it real. And his movies, I do actually enjoy his movies, except for Green Lantern, which my son makes me watch ad nauseum, and I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. It's so
Oh
bad.
my God. What? Why is that even in
Yeah.
your house? No, that
It's
should
not
not
in my
even be in
house.
your
It's
house.
online. It would never enter my house. I saw that movie pre-kid, and I was like, "Oh hell no, 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 and no." And now that he's here, he's like, "Can we watch Green Lantern?" I'm like, "But why? You don't understand how bad it is. Like, it's horrible."
Yeah, I
But
mean, and we
anyway,
had such high hopes for it. I mean, and I love the
we
Green
did.
Lantern mythology, and it just did not come together. I mean, it was a
Nope.
while. I'm not gonna lie. There was a while before Deadpool where Ryan Reynolds was in like two movies a year for like 3 years in a row, and I think the only thing that hit was his romantic comedy with Sandra Bullock, and I mean, The Proposal, I think
Oh
is what it was
yeah,
called.
the
I mean,
proposal.
but
Yeah.
everything else was just like bombing left and right. And I kept saying, why are they keep trying to make Ryan Reynolds happen? Like, he's not happening. Stop trying to make fetch happen. And
Oh,
then
fetch.
Deadpool happened and everything kind of clicked and they figured
Yeah,
out
yeah.
what kind of vehicle Ryan Reynolds worked in. But I was like, if this was a black actor, y'all would have been gave up on him. Y'all are not giving black actors multiple chances to bomb in $100 million films like this left and right.
You already know.
So, all
So
right.
true.
So, it's complicated. These are the stories where we have mixed feelings about the thing. We love certain aspects of it, but we recognize how it can be perceived as problematic, um, an incomplete solution to the problem it's addressing, or just has elements that keep us from absolutely loving it. What is your It's Complicated this week, AMC?
I am picking on TikTok this week.
Oh,
So
oh, oh,
uh,
oh.
uh, uh, apparently, and I'll say apparently with air quotes, TikTok is helping artists to build their careers. Silence. Okay. So it's no secret, right, that black creators on TikTok have been known to receive their short end of the stick. When it comes to branding, promotions, and opportunities of the like, we've seen it happen ad nauseum, time and time again, where creators, even those that create music, because there are a lot of indie artists on TikTok as well that create music and it's being used worldwide because the song goes viral and they're not getting one dime or one lick towards their work or not, they're not even getting a name or anything tagged or nothing, just nothing, absolutely nothing. So they're left in the dark with no compensation while their songs are going like completely viral and international. So finally, TikTok has decided to open up their own marketing and distribution side called Sound On. And I quote, they said that we're making it easier for independent artists to get their music on TikTok, and we're going to work with them to better understand how to reach their audiences. That's from the global head of music at TikTok. And they say they're not going to be charging artists to use it, which is
Mm,
really interesting to me. But okay. So some say that it's going to be a game changer because there are many artists that will be able to reap the benefits from this. And Sounddown is going to function like a distribution company with all of the benefits for the artist. And the big thing about that is that they won't have to give up their masters. So apparently, the artist is going to own everything from jump. Now, the first couple of artists on TikTok to reap any of these benefits to the partnership is Muni Long, who we were talking about. Sorry, Money. I would say Muni. Money Long. She spells it Muni. Okay.
We are
So,
wrecking names all over the place today at the Gibson Gazette. Blame it on our hearts. I mean, not our heads. Or our heads, not our heart. See, I can't even get that right. Blame it on
oh
our
my
heads, not our
God.
hearts.
Like my
Woo.
mama said, I didn't birth you. So if I can't remember
Listen,
your name,
we
I'm sorry.
record this before we go to bed, people. This is what's happening.
Oh man. So Money Long. So her track Hers and Hers, which we've spoken about before, that song has gone viral. Everybody loves it. It's been played crazy, and it's on. I believe it's on the charts too because it's been doing so well. It's been on Billboard. And then there's another English singer who's coming up in the same ranks. Her name is Chloe Adams, and she's gone on to garner 10 million streams on Spotify. Not that Spotify means shit anymore, but you know what I mean. That's a lot of streams. So it sounds like a great deal, but my thing, I'm like, is it too good to be true? Like, what about? So we have that's the music side. I'd like to see what they're going to do with the content creators themselves. So what's in place for them? Because again, we've seen how the black creators get left in the dark on numerous occasions with content that's been stolen. They end up, and the white creators end up reaping all of the accolades and opportunities. So do we need a distribution deal for our creators as well? Should this be a well-rounded distribution thing? Is this a good look for TikTok and for independent artists? What do you think from your perspective, LMG?
I don't trust big tech companies to do the right thing when it comes to
Right.
to cultural creators, black cultural creators. I mean, look, they have these, minority programs. There are efforts. I don't want to. I'm always somebody who gets annoyed when people poo-poo efforts to try to make a difference, even though it's the full on impact that you would want.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying be grateful for crumbs, but I'm also like, there are people who actually are benefiting from those programs at YouTube, at Facebook. They're about to start a program that's supposed to support minority content creators,
Mm-hmm.
and TikTok as well. So, is it? I still don't trust that that's sufficient to ultimately make sure that we get paid on par with white content creators.
Right.
Uh, but I'm also glad for any kind of positive movement forward. There are always going to be a handful of folks who benefit from these kind of programs, and most of them won't.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think that's going to be true here too. But yeah, what about you? I mean, do you feel like ultimately that there are good intentions here that are, or this is just like for press?
I think that maybe there's a fine line and that maybe there's some good intentions there, but I'm really curious as to how much of their soul they have to give away in order to keep their masters. And
Mm.
what exactly is in this contract? I mean, they don't have to pay, but obviously big tech needs something. What is it that they're benefiting from the artists themselves? What are they taking? I'd like to know what the fine print is, because of course they're not going to tell you that in the article.
But yeah, or the press
So,
release that which you and I
right.
both have been in the field for long enough to know that what they did was receive the press release from a
Hmm.
PR agent that they
Yep.
quickly refashioned to go ahead and put it out as new fresh content that they didn't have to have a writer spend a lot of time on. So
It's
uh,
okay.
yeah, it's a feel good press piece, but will it ultimately benefit cultural creators of color? I guess we'll soon
Hmm.
find out.
Yeah, we'll see.
Because the one thing about us, we will definitely spill the beans if it ain't what they said it is.
Oh, for sure. And I know for a fact Money Long is she's not afraid to speak out. So I think that if she got caught in a corner, she would definitely voice her opinion and let us know what's going on. So I'm hoping for the best. Don't get me wrong. I'm hoping for the best for these artists. If they do fall into this partnership or decide to use the program, then by all means, I hope it works out to their benefit and for them. And we get to see more artists actually get paid for their creativity because that's what it comes down to.
Awesome. So this actually dovetails nicely with my It's Complicated for this week, which is the Blackverse is in the deepest of debates over the new Ralph Lauren HBCU collection. For those who don't know, it has been conceived of and helmed by James Jeter, a 2013 graduate of Morehouse College and employee
Hmm.
of Polo Ralph Lauren, and features faculty, alumni, and students of both schools and models. The entire rollout is just, to me, gorgeous.
Stunning.
The
Hmm.
clothing borrows heavily from the 20s through the 50s.
Hmm.
I think the Griot's Panama Jackson talked about the fact that somebody called it civil rights chic, and after he heard it, he could not unhear it. um, right? Like, according to Vogue, the campaign was shot by Nadine. I'm gonna I'm gonna butcher this person's last name, so I'm just gonna spell it Ijewere. I think it's Ajiri.
Ajwar?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
See, this is bad. This is what
And
that
I'm
Western
stopping.
tongue is failing this African name.
I'm
this is why
stopping there.
the legacy of slavery, y'all. Legacy of slavery. We
Mm.
can't even say our people's names right. Making
Yeah,
it the
yeah.
brand's first where black folks were used exclusively, both behind the scenes and in front of the camera.
Mm.
Now, Panama Jackson also pointed out in his article about this campaign that Ralph Lauren committed to donating money to HBCUs, and
Oh.
Ralph Lauren corporate foundations donated $2 million to Morehouse, Spelman, and 10 other HBCUs via the United Negro College Fund as a collaboration in December of 2021, and other efforts have also been made to these universities and institutions, and they're going to financially benefit, right? Like, there's licensing, because what happened, for those who may not be aware of what were the inspirations for this campaign, was they went into the archives of Morehouse and Spelman,
Hmm.
whose letters have been the primary. You get a giant M and S's and stuff. So I'm sure
Right.
some of the other universities, like Bennett and Howard, may feel away. FAMU, other HBCUs of note, Fisk. But yeah, Morehouse and Spelman opened their archives, their photographic archives, to the designers to be able to draw inspiration from our twists. Like, how did Black people put a twist on clothing in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s? Like, yes,
Mm.
so one of the people on my thread in discussion, it was like, we just wore what everybody else wears. Like, no, we have never worn what everyone else wears in the exact same way that everyone else wears it. We have
Exactly.
always done
We just
our
put a
own
twist on it.
thing. We
Hmm.
always put a twist on it, and
Hmm.
then the culture follows us, right? Like, and
Right.
how we
Right.
do it. And so, and then today, it came out. So some people who felt salty about the campaign brought up the fact that Andre 3000 back in 2008 launched a clothing line
Mm.
called Benjamin Bigsby, which
Hmm.
has some of the similar looks from that era. Right, that
Hmm.
kind of what one of my followers called the Newsies look. So, referencing the musical and film by Disney
Oh
about
gosh.
the paper boys of
The
the
paperboy.
Depression
Yeah.
era.
Yes, I remember
Look,
that.
I actually love that look on us. I have always thought that we look better, quite frankly, when we dress like that. And it's not
Hmm.
about respectability. I know some have called this respectability chic too. Um, but they're amazing clothes, they're amazing looks, and I think that anytime we see us in them, everybody's like, oh, you looking casket sharp, right? Like, I think that
Yes.
if this doesn't do well, like, so clearly we are like on day 2 or 3 of a conversation about it, so the campaign has already had the impact that it wanted to have. Tongues are wagging, debates are being
Hmm.
had, photos are being shared, thought pieces are already being written. um and and then there's like people who are making up stuff. They're like, oh, it's Ralph Lauren. Ralph Lauren don't like Black people. I was like, that was Tommy Hilfiger.
Oh
That was
God.
supposed, and that was an urban myth
And
that
that's a
was
legend.
already
Yeah.
proven. Right, it was an urban
Right.
legend that was proven not to be true. Oprah had to
Mm.
invite Tommy Hilfiger on the show to prove that it had never been said on her show, right? And so now we're like confusing our white designers, right? Our white Americana designers at that.
Hmm.
Ralph Lauren has long a champion of Black folks, and had models like Tyson Beckford was their signature model back in the
That's right.
90s. That was how
Hmm.
Tyson Beckford became a major supermodel. That for like a decade he was the face of Ralph Lauren. So I don't know. Like, I feel like people want a capitalist institution to not be a capitalist institution. Like Ralph Lauren, one doesn't owe anybody anything; they can do what they want to do.
Mhm. Mhm.
And they're making an overture towards our community, specifically, for a look that we owned and employed black folks behind the scenes. White folks didn't make this, right? Like this is a black designer. you know they are not culturally thieving. They're letting us know the looks were given to them by the
Mhm.
archives of Spelman and Morehouse. Now
Yeah.
you could take issue with Spelman and Morehouse's opening up their archives to Ralph Lauren versus, say, Benjamin Bigsby or some other black designer. But it's
Right.
also like, did other black designers ask for the archives of
Mhm.
HBCUs, or is this something that was a original, fresh idea that came from this particular black designer at Ralph Lauren? And I also don't understand, like, what is the end game? Do we want to be represented by mainstream labels and designers, or do we want to be invisible to those designers? Because when they didn't pay us any attention and they didn't feature us and they didn't think about our aesthetic and they didn't think about our clothing and they didn't make stuff for us, we complained that we were being excluded. Now that they're doing it, the argument is, oh, they're exploiting our resources. This money should be going to black designers, and it should. You should be going to support black designers. But like, but to say that, I mean, but and there are great black designers, but they didn't come up with this particular campaign. They didn't come up with this particular look. I mean, and when they did, Benjamin Bigsy failed, right? Like Andre
Mhm.
3000's clothing line failed, and there are lots of good reasons for that that have nothing to do with the quality of Benjamin Bigsby. One of the
Mhm.
things I pointed out, when somebody brought this to my attention, I was like, I didn't even know this brand existed. I was 33 when that happened. I was an Andre 3000 fan. I never saw the brand. Right? Like, and I'm like, I'm not mad at Ralph Lauren for telling a better story, right? HBCU
Yeah.
archival informed, HBCU alum created, because the
Mhm.
designers are HBCU alum,
Nice.
HBCUs financially benefiting from the sales. It had viral appeal through a smarter, more strategic marketing and promotional push than, say,
Mhm.
Benjamin Bixby might have had. And now, maybe in 2022, when a story can go big without a strong PR and media connection from
Mhm.
magazines, right? Like
Mhm.
newspapers,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Yeah.
when a small shop or brand can do, just to get the same kind of attention through social media,
Right.
yeah, but in 2008 we weren't on social media like that. Facebook wasn't even
No.
really a thing, so this brand
Yeah.
obviously
Yeah.
didn't have the needed media attention for a variety of reasons to go big like this RL campaign has gone, and been able to do. And yes, we can argue that budget differentials play a role in why we know about Ralph Lauren's new campaign, and racial bias
Mhm.
in media
Mhm.
plays a role in why we know about the Ralph Lauren campaign. But
Mhm.
some of it is just who told a more compelling story to grab the buying public's and media's attention. And Ralph Lauren told a
Right.
better story. So, ripped to the RIP for Benjamin Brigsby, for being a brand before its time. Um, but that doesn't take anything away from me, anyway, from the Ralph Lauren launch for their HBCU collection. And I'm in hot ass Merida, Mexico. And I'm still going to try to figure out how that, if they got my size, I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna put it in a little storage for when I go visiting someplace cold later on. Because these are
There you go.
classic clothes. Like the
Yep.
fact that these looks are classic. You can wear these looks at any point, at any time in American
Yep.
history, except maybe the '70s, because the '70s was just weird. And you're gonna be complimented on these clothes, right? So that's my. It's complicated. What do you feel about it?
I love it. I love the aesthetics alone for me were on point. I mean, oh my gosh. And I've seen a few articles, but for me it was the article in Vogue, which is I think the one that I think you shared this one.
That Panama
Um
Jackson was talking about.
uh yeah, yeah, exactly. And the pictures, oh my, like I'm staring at it and the you guys got to go and see the pictures. I think the pictures alone will just will take you to where you need to go visually. And wow. And not even just the campaign pictures, but the pictures from Morehouse. the basketball players, and they go into, the assembly halls and Martin Luther King, and like their inspiration, they went in. Like they went into the archives. They weren't playing. And when you see the clothing with the ladies, and you're right, it's what we used to wear like that. I even remember just in high school, when I don't, I'm sure this was in the States too, but the blazers were a thing, man. Blazers and your jeans and your polo shirt, that was it, with your loafers. And it's almost kind of
Yeah.
like the same concept that's coming back around. And then the skirts, and then the button down blouses, and then the argyle sweaters, or the, man, listen, this is it. I was floored, honestly, when I first saw it. I didn't even think to read anything else into it. I didn't want to hear any of the bickering back and forth or whatever. I just wanted to kind of soak in everything, because it was just beautiful. I thought it was gorgeous. But I'm going to do more reading in terms of everybody's perspectives. But I feel that this designer, he did it right. Like,
Yeah, I
he
mean,
you know what I
this
mean? He
is how
took the
you want it
necessary
done.
steps. Right,
This is you
exactly.
want black photographers, black models, black designer, black
Black,
people financially
black.
benefiting. I mean, obviously, these HBCUs are going to get a pittance compared to what Ralph Lauren's going to get, right? Like we're not
Of
going to lie
course,
to
we know
ourselves.
this already. We're not stupid.
But
Yeah,
but
for
they're, but they're
real.
getting something, and trust,
Mhm.
HBCUs need every dollar they can get. No, no shade.
Yeah.
Um, and to your point, I hadn't even thought about that. Like the '80s, preppy was all the rage in the '80s with the flipped up
Yeah.
polo collar, and I remember as a little boy wearing my sweaters. On my shoulder, with the little front of the
Yes.
sleeves, making a little ball in the
With your
front, right? Like there
That's
was there
it.
was a time we did, and I definitely had penny
Mhm.
loafers with a penny in them.
Of
So
course. Hush
somebody
puppies. Come on. Come on, y'all.
somebody was talking about the fact that uh that whether or not this was going to be a success, and part of what I said, well, I think we're entering a conservative backlash era. I think we're in the early days of it. I think some of us want to believe that we're only in the middle of it or almost over it, but I feel like we're still in the early days of just how bad this conservative backlash is going to be.
Mm,
And when things get more conservative, so do our clothes, right? Like, and so
yeah.
I think that there's room for this to potentially become a phenomenon to inform fashion and kind of what is considered. There's also like this movement among men, particularly young black men, to dress professionally and have like
Yes.
Jay-Z had been inspiring this for a while, right? Like this, have your suit look, in addition to your urban wear look. And so
Mhm.
that, I think that time wise, that also kind of can have a impact. But there is the other part of this, which is that these clothes are fairly dressy. And
Mhm.
we are in a phase where people are, one out of seven jobs are remote work.
Yeah.
People are even going to church online. We're
True.
not getting dressy. We're not getting casket sharp for each
People don't dress up
other
for
as
church either
often.
anymore.
Right, right. So I don't, so then to be, and these aren't really club wear, right? Like,
Right.
so it's kind of like, where are we wearing this stuff? Like, it's beautiful,
Brunch.
but, right, you can dress up for brunch, but, it would
Mhm.
be interesting to see whether or not, because we're in such an athleisure
Yeah.
period,
Period. Yeah. Yeah.
will we embrace this look as an opportunity to get dressy, or will it kind of be like people have their one or two outfits for this for when they want to have to flex, right?
Yeah.
But for most
It
of
could be
us, we
the
like
early.
throwing on a button-down shirt in front of Zoom for work
True.
with no
With
bottom,
shorts.
right? With no bottom on, right?
Oh gosh. I think it's the latter, as you said. I think people will buy a couple of pieces where you can make a solid outfit, and okay, you know, I'm going to the winery with my girls, because that's a winery outfit right there. Your polo
Mhm.
shirt, your pants, your loafers, whatever. Or I'm going to go chill for brunch or whatever. I think that people are going to have their specific pieces that they can match up with other pieces in their closet and keep it moving. If, it really continues, the leisure wear kind of period continues to kind of trail for a little bit longer, which I think it will, to be honest. But I think I will go with the latter. I think people will definitely support and buy pieces, but not go like mad crazy, like if we were all heading to the office like we used to.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's give a reminder. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, and share on whatever platform you're listening to us on. And also comment or review where possible so that we can climb the charts of the various platform algorithms this show is on. Now, back with the show. All right, Amory. This is the just no. These are stories that we hated or have harsh critiques for. This is where we go in. Give it to me, AMC.
Okay, y'all. I am coming to y'all from an entrepreneurial perspective. And because Miss Kim Kardashian really ruffled my feathers with this one. So I'm going to go back a little bit and let's talk about the grind and hustle culture. So, what are we really doing and who is it serving and why are we hurting ourselves like this? Um, I believe I read on LMG's page, he had posted an article talking about black business ownership is higher than pre pandemic. So women are actually driving that growth.
Black
Um,
women.
Black women, yes, which is absolutely fantastic. Yet on the other end, here's where I step on top of my soapbox here. I read this article in the Cut, and mind you, this author was a white woman, but a lot of black women, we do this to ourselves too. I mean, I'm not even gonna lie, I used to do this to myself too. But it's this whole just grinding thing. And so let me take this author's situation here. So she was able to leave her day job because her second book manuscript was acquired by a publisher. She used to suffer from migraines just here and there, but then they became worse because of the pressure she imposed on herself since her first novel really didn't perform too well. Now, she hit rock bottom when she was on tour. She was doing 60 events in a 14-month span. Imagine that. She
Crazy.
went from, yeah, that's stupid. She went from having migraines here and there to a 14-day migraine that landed her in the ER. I suffer from migraines. I cannot even fathom a 14-day migraine. That is not a joke. Now, she kept on working when she had this 14-day migraine. So then from the 14-day migraine, it went to daily migraines where absolutely nothing, including medication, worked for her. So she finally had to stop and address the relationship that she had with her body and her health. And she said, I quote, I had put my writing, my ambition, and my success over not just my health, but my experience of life. That sentence right there, that did it for me. I was like, wow, okay, listen. So think about how weighted that statement is. And again, it's not just a white woman thing. I'm talking in general. And as black women, I think because we know we have to work extra hard in order to achieve what our other counterparts achieve on the daily, like nothing, we had to put 5 times the grind on top of that. So we kind of sometimes end up, and I know women who have done this, just kept on driving themselves into the ground until they hit a wall. And that is not healthy, guys. In this toxic grind culture that's been promoted and like literally force fed to us for years, we've allowed ourselves to be consumed with work. And it's a known concept, especially in tech and startups. And I've worked in tech and I've worked with startups, and it is. I've seen people check in on the weekends. I'm like, no. Mm-mm. So it's everywhere. And in my early stages, as I said, I fell into this trap too. And I fell into it while I was in a corporate job too. And I learned two very important lessons. And I carry these two lessons with me to this day. Like, I'm absolutely fucking amazing at what I do. That's it. That's all. I'm aware of this already. But I refuse to burn myself out for a company who can replace me at any minute. Like, I'm simply a body and a number on a pay stub. I'm not doing that. Like, you have to know where the limit is. And boundaries, that's it right there. Boundaries, they're so important. So for yourself, for your clients, for your employer, emphasis on the word so important. You need boundaries. And even for people in your personal life, if you want to stay home and you don't want to go out, stay home and veg on the sofa. Don't go out. Do what you want to do. Don't feel guilty about it. If you need to rest, rest. So now I believe there's a balance between working hard to achieve your goals and grinding yourself into the ground. There's a fine balance. So from the writer's statement alone that she said, there's really a lot to unpack. So I feel that ambition and success is great and all, but how are you going to accomplish anything if you don't have your health? If you don't have your health, you can't work, you can't do anything. It doesn't make any sense. So, what life experiences have taken you this far pre hustle? What has changed? Like, how does the grind culture reflect in the way that you work? There's so many questions that you have to ask yourself while you're in the midst of all of this grinding, grinding, grinding. Is it worth your mental and physical health? It's not. And then that's when Kim came with this stupid Variety magazine clip. Did you happen to see that as yet? I'm sure you have. There's
Well,
no way you couldn't have.
I saw the amazing takedown on it that went viral, got 500,000 views. But yeah, yeah. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, 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 no. That's the quote with her. Women have to get their fucking ass up and work. So I mean, okay, Miss Upper Class. It just the backlash. It came as just fast and furious, right? And she can grind, but her grind is on a whole other. I don't know. It's just not there's no correlation, absolutely no correlation, because you can speak to a black woman who just started a job, who's getting paid minimum wage, and who works their ass off every single day. Her work ethic does not correlate to her monetary success. That is that. We know this. And there's so much more that can be said, but I'll step off my soapbox and I'll leave it at that. Um, you're an entrepreneur at heart as well, LMG. And okay, yes, right now you're in the corporate world, but you are an entrepreneur. So, what do you think about grind culture and its repercussions on us in general?
I was trying to find this name of the sister because
You talking about
her
Lenny,
takedown.
Lindsay?
Yeah, Lindsay. Yeah, I was
Yeah,
trying. I knew, like, I was trying to figure out how to pronounce her name as well. Her takedown of Kim Kardashian on this subject was
sick.
legendary. I mean,
Yes.
she left no stone unturned, and there was like it
Nope.
wasn't a hater. Like there's sometimes where I feel like some of the Kim Kardashian backlash is hating,
Yes,
and
agreed.
then
Yeah.
it's like some of the things y'all complaining about I don't trust it. But um but this takedown, there wasn't a single thing said that was not
was
verifiable,
it was facts.
and
Hmm.
and she went viral for it. So
Yep.
in terms of grind culture, look, it's tough. Like we are told we as black folks live over our head with the mythology of our laziness, with the
Hmm.
mythology of our pathologies. If we don't own a house, if we don't dress a certain way, if we don't have a hot new car, if we aren't able to pop bottles and aren't able to
Hmm.
do VIP. I mean, there's so much pressure on
Yeah.
us to reflect not just capitalism, but like the highest level of capitalism while still entering marketplaces with our hand tied behind our back. We still know that to this day, a white man with a prison record and a high school diploma will earn more money and can get a job faster than the black man
Hmm.
with a college degree, right?
Hmm.
Like, and so, and that even with all the success, black women are the number one most educated group of people in all of America, including white men, including Asian people, right? Like black women lead in education statistics,
Yeah.
and they still aren't getting dollar for dollar in their paycheck, right? What
Hmm.
a white woman is, what a black man is, right? So,
Yeah.
um, so we're we're asked to live these lives of flexing and leisure on Instagram and look good and all of these things. Whereas before we could look good off of some when I was growing up, we would go to the thrift store and find stuff and make the thrift store stuff hot, right? And Philly folks still do
Yeah,
this. It's kind of
we
actually
still
a part
do.
of Philly culture, to
Hmm.
make thrift store looks hot. But yeah, like now, if it's not limited edition this, if it's not Fenty that, if it's not, the couture designer, then it's nothing. And we're supposed to
Right,
be nothing without it. And so even if you're not flexing on kind of the aesthetic tip, there's the other side of it, right? Like there's the respectability flex, which is, how many houses do you own? What's your investment property? What does your
right.
401k look like? Are you investing in cryptocurrency? Are you in Bitcoin? Are you in like, you know, and if you aren't doing all the things, then it's kind of like, you're not responsible, you're not financially savvy, you're
Hmm.
missing the
Hmm.
moment. And that kind of thinking got a lot of black people into subprime mortgages that they could not afford.
Right.
And even when
Keeping
they
up with the
had great
Joneses.
credit, right?
Hmm.
Even when they had great credit, the banks preyed on this pressure on us to always be doing it big. um, and that's not to say you shouldn't try to own your home if you can. It is not to say, if that's what you want for your lifestyle. It is not to say you shouldn't make sure that you are saving for your retirement.
Hmm.
Even though the average black man's age for death is 71, right? And the
Imagine
sisters
that.
ain't too much further beyond that. So, by the time you hit retirement age, you're not even given a good 10 years. But, you should be saving. You should, have some of these things. Um, but everybody isn't gonna be in $1 million house.
Hmm.
Everybody's not gonna be able to drive the hot Tesla, and that's got to be okay too. We got to make it okay for people who work hard, who try to do the best they can with their
Hmm.
savings, with their resources, you know, um, and help each other. But this kind of, you have to, in order to be considered valuable, in order to be considered worthy, in order to consider not a failure. Um, the reality is that most of us are average. I mean, we don't like to talk about that, but everybody's not black excellence. Some
True.
people are just black average, right?
Black
And,
average.
and that's and quite frankly, that's their capacities and that's their talents is average. And so when I grind and hustle culture, yeah, I'm part of that. I'm part of those folks who, because I grew up poor and I don't romanticize poverty. I have my own demons around making sure I'm making a certain amount of money.
Hmm.
But I did let go of a lot of the trapping stuff. Like I stopped dressing in couture clothing, or even trying to aspire to be in that. Stop spending money on things that weren't bringing me joy, but were about other
Hmm.
people. Um, so there are ways, and moving to someplace that was affordable. When I moved to Detroit, part of the appeal of Detroit was it was unapologetically black, but also part of it was that it was more affordable than Washington D.C. I loved Washington
Hmm.
D.C., but spending all that money to try to keep up with the Joneses all the time was
Right.
exhausting.
Of course.
And now I'm in Merida, Mexico. So let me even tell you the way the flex of my home in Merida for the price of my Detroit rent.
Yeah. That's listen.
Like that hustle and grind culture, you can do it big in another country.
Hmm.
The way that they want you to do it in America will kill you.
Yeah. 100%. a hundred
And there's
percent.
a reason why there's a black expat movement. A lot of folks are getting into the fact that they can live a lot more affordably with US dollars in another country's currency.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's what I got to say about it. Yeah, I mean, do you? But if this is about other people, if this is about keeping up with the Joneses, this is about impressing folks and flexing. You can't take all of this stuff with you to the casket.
That's your choice, man. If that's what you choose, by all means, peace. Like I mean, there's always a choice, right? There's always a choice. So it's about making the right one for you, whatever you think is going to serve you. But I'm hoping that it's a smart one, of course, along the way, right? That won't kill you.
Well, my just know
Hmm.
is Herschel Walker.
Oh goddamn!
Now, Herschel Walker is known as an athlete in some circles, but increasingly, uh, this I believe he's a Trump supporter. Um,
Yep.
yeah, is a black Republican, and he's currently the black Republican candidate in Georgia for the U.S.
Really?
Senate. Hmm.
Did
And
not know that.
is not doing bad in the polls.
Ugh.
Looks like he might could eke it out, which is scary.
Oh my
And
god.
part of the reason it's scary, for lots of reasons, his policy platforms are trash for anyone who
Hmm.
has a progressive bone in their body. But beyond that, um, this Republican candidate for Georgia's U.S. Senate came up with an extremely dubious argument about evolution. According to
Hmm.
the Daily Beast, he said, at one time, science said man came from apes. Did it not? He said during an appearance at a church on Sunday. If that is true, why are there still apes? Think about it. Dun dun dun. So this statement,
Oh
which does
boy.
not prove the theory of evolution is false, nonetheless landed well among the congregation.
Of course it
He's,
did.
he said, now you're getting too, the church pastor said, co-signing. Now you're
Hmm.
getting too smart for us, Herschel. Now, there's a lot of things Herschel was doing in that moment. It was a lot of things Herschel was doing in that moment. But getting smart.
Oh
No, that was not one of
boy.
the things Herschel was doing in that moment. No, no, baby. No, no, baby. He was not getting smart. Um,
Wow.
Walker then doubled down on his damnation of science, according to the Daily Beast, falsely arguing that science alone cannot be responsible for the creation of a baby.
Oh my
They're still
god.
trying to do that, but they can't because there has to be God, he said. Walker, the GOP frontrunner, is competing against Senator Raphael Warnock of Georgia in November. So the Huffington Post goes even deeper, right? So, because there might be some among us who thinks that Herschel was being really smart. There might be some among us who also did not pass high school biology, who,
Clearly.
who
Huh.
maybe didn't have an anthropology class in college, maybe didn't attend college. So they might believe this.
Mm.
Um, but humans did not evolve from the apes that you see at the zoo. Rather, humans and apes have a common and now extinct ancestor that lived roughly 10 million years ago. The Huffington Post has explained for those who are still confused. Technically, all humans, in terms of classifications, are apes, but that doesn't mean that the chimpanzee are one step away from becoming people. Walker's summary of evolution is therefore incorrect. There's nothing incompatible about humans coexisting with other apes. So just want to make
You
that
watch too
clear.
much Planet of the Apes, man. Jesus.
But there are people, the pastor co-sign. I mean, the congregation cheered, right? There's some black folks in there. There was some black folks.
Please don't get me started
Right.
on
So we want to
please.
make sure, and also for those who may still be confused, evolution, believing in evolution and Christianity are not necessarily at odds. Many scientists who support and whose work is undergirded by the theory of evolution are
Hmm.
also Christians, right?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
science has made remarkable. Oh, and also about this baby thing, right? Because they're still trying to do that, but they can't because there has to be God. What he said. Science has of course also made some remarkable progress in assisting people trying to have children, like
Right.
IVF.
Mm-hmm.
you
I know where
know,
he's going.
Now here's the other thing. Walker remains the front runner in this race despite
How?
having domestic violence allegations against
Oh
him.
boy.
In his divorce proceedings, his ex-wife alleged that he displayed physically abusive and threatening behavior during their marriage, and that at one point he put a gun to her head and threatened
Oh
to
my
blow her
god.
brains out. At least
Whoa.
two other women, according to the Huffington Post, have also claimed that Walker threatened them. And in an interview with well, I could AXIOS, Exos. Okay, I'm sure I'm
X
butchering that too. This is just the day
XS.
for butchering, y'all. Walker said he had struggled with mental health issues, but is quote unquote accountable for his past actions, without going into specifics about his behavior toward his ex-wife. Here's what I'll say to Herschel Walker, sir. How about you learn how not to put your hands on your so-called helpmates? The neck to your head and all the other men are the head of household, natural order foolishness beliefs that you may have, instead of trying to fail basic high school biology in the public square, sounding like an uneducated backwoods preacher from the Depression.
Mm.
Nobody's here for it. Nobody with sense. At least not those of us who graduated from high school, or maybe even middle school for that matter. So, yes, Herschel Walker. I mean, we can do some remedial classes with you if you want to sound smarter as a politician, or maybe even just as a human being or as a citizen of this world. But yeah, let's not.
Wow. So, is there any word about Senator Raphael Warnock? Like, what's the senator up to?
I mean, he's running. He's trying to win against, obviously Walker being the GOP candidate has a lot of money behind him. And we
True.
now have voter suppression laws that have passed in
Oh
Georgia,
yeah, yeah.
which is going to make it that much harder. Mind you, Georgians already stood outside in line upwards 4 or more hours just to cast
Hmm.
their vote
Hmm.
before these voter suppression laws were passed,
That is
right?
true. Yeah, yeah.
Had to drive polling places far away from where they live because they kept closing the ones in the black neighborhood.
Hmm.
Tried to make it more difficult by ending those Sunday bus drives to the voting
Hmm.
polls
Hmm.
from church. So yeah, it's going to be harder, um, but Georgians turned the state blue last time. So, but
Hmm.
the fight is going to be that much more. But I'm also like GOP folks. Do y'all really want Herschel Walker as your representing you? Because even if you believe some of what he believes, he sounds like he got hit in the head too many times. It's no Tino
Okay,
shade.
see, I was no, oh no. There's all kind of shade there. I'm not. I co-sign that so much. Because every time I hear Herschel Walker, all I think about is Heisman Trophy, right? So I don't even go past that. So when you said he was a candidate in Georgia for the U.S. Senate, my head spinned, like it spun. Sorry, I was like, what? He's what? It didn't make sense. And then you start spewing this whole science conspiracy. I don't know. I do not know. Jesus, GOP front runner? Oh my gosh. This is something.
Yeah.
And now
I
you're
mean,
telling
it's
me that he
also
actually has a chance
scary.
to win? Yeah, it's
He
very
has he
scary.
has a very good chance to win.
That is amazing to
The
me.
Republicans have been paying attention to the changing demographics of America, and they've
Yeah.
there's always somebody in skin folk ain't always our kinfolk
Leonard's our kinfolk,
ready
yeah, for
to
real.
jump up and do the work for the
For
massa.
real. Oh
So,
man.
God bless. God bless Georgia. Y'all get out there and vote and get those folks registered. Get the people
Please.
ID, get them money to get ID. Help people who check them IDs, make sure your your ID is current for this next election come November, because it's gonna be a
Hmm.
doozy.
They're gonna look for
All
every
right.
excuse.
So
Hmm.
normally, folks, our last thing, you've been letting us down mightily, y'all. We trying to have a segment called Stories You Tell. We want to tell your stories, and have asked for y'all to submit a half a page to a one-page story. Y'all just get a paragraph or two. Ain't gotta be long. We ain't trying to read long. But we need your stories, your what the fuck stories, your sex stories, your fun stories. And they don't have to even be real. You just let us know at the end of the story if it's real or fake, and we will tell the audience after we've read it, and
We're
discussed
on
it.
a
I
roll
don't know what's
tonight.
we are on a
Spinning,
roll.
spun, read,
Just
read. Our
just
tenses are
sounding we
fucked, and
sounded
we're
like
done.
Herschel Walker. We sound like we went to the same school as he did tonight. um so like yeah, we're gonna read it and discuss it, and let the folks know if it's real or fake. But in the because we don't have this story, I have two stories from the media that I want to talk about briefly, because we are almost at time. This might actually be one of our shorter conversations depending on how this goes.
All right.
So I have two stories, they're interrelated.
Mm.
And first one was reported by People magazine. This one was of a 5-year-old toddler who knocked a teacher clean the fuck out.
Get out of here.
According to People, Trisha Meadows, who has been a special needs teacher for 13 years, was left unconscious when she was attacked at school by a 5-year-old, say
Oh my
police.
god.
According to the police report obtained by People, the incident began when two students in the classroom, 4 and 5 years old, began throwing things around the classroom and at the teachers, along with flipping the chairs.
Say
So
what?
the toddlers then shook the table.
What
So
is going on? Four and
other
5 year
faculty
olds?
members, 4 and 5 year olds, other faculty members separated the students while Meadows took the 5-year-old to a nearby cool down room, according to the report. Moments
Mm.
later, she radioed other staff that she needed support. The report says he actually ran and attacked and jumped on her with his full body weight. She fell and hit her head, which
Oh
caused
my
severe
god.
injury and other bodily injuries where she's going to need surgery.
Oh my god.
Meadows somehow made her way out of the room on her own strength. I would hope so. The responding officer wrote in the report that he found her sitting on the ground against the wall in a faint state. He said he had to hold her
Mm-mm-mm.
up as she was clearly weak and dazed. When she began coughing and dry heaving, the officer laid her on her side and held her head straight up to maintain the open airflow and prevent possible choking. Then the teacher lost consciousness,
Mm-mm.
right? She was rushed to a local hospital with injuries so severe she had to be intubated.
Oh shit.
Now, no charges were filed, though technically the toddler committed aggravated assault with hands, fists, and feet, aggravated battery to cause bodily harm or disability. Now, as
Oh
bad as that
my
was, and,
god.
and, and we should probably note that this was a special needs classroom, right? So this is a special needs
Okay.
teacher.
Okay.
But the
Okay. Sure.
teacher's supposed to be trained to manage a special
Right.
needs classroom, one would think.
She's
Now,
13 years.
poor Miss Trisha ain't even alone. In the same week, this is reporting from Love B. Scott. A student at a Texas middle school threw chairs. People, we got to keep the chairs on the floor. We got to, come on now.
Right? They need to be nailed down,
They
apparently.
threw chairs at a 73-year-old substitute teacher.
Oh my god.
The teacher was left with a bloodied face and threw the chairs right back.
Okay. Mm.
this, there's a series of clips circulating online. I'm sure you can find them if you haven't already seen them. Showed the substitute teacher at DeSoto West Middle School, some middle school, being struck in the head Wednesday. Damn!
Mm-mm.
Another teacher yelled out after educator Larry Brumfield was hit in the head. One clip shows.
I'm sorry.
Brumfield,
Student
you're a
yell out,
mess. You should
damn.
not be. Look at you laughing at the elder getting his ass beat
What
by
what
children, by
is
middle
going
schoolers. No, this is
on?
not funny. Broomfield then could be seen picking up several chairs because he about that life and tossing them back towards the student who attacked him.
What?
leaving
Jesus.
other students shocked at what they were seeing. Brumfield said the teen who tossed the chair wasn't even assigned to his class and had refused to leave. The school is talking about all parties will be held accountable. But the attack won't keep Brumfield from returning to a classroom despite his daughter begging him to quit. He says, I came up from the ghettos of Gary, Indiana, Chicago. He told the
Oh,
station, I'm from Chicago, so Brumfield is
I
definitely
know.
about that life. I'm thinking as an idealist, I have some things up here I could share with people that might help them. Now, folks,
Holy shit. What kind of
we got
fight
middle
club baby
schoolers
shit going on
and
here?
toddlers. And if you were to just do a simple Google search or even on some of these blogs, the words teacher gets hit, you would see way too many of these kinds of stories.
That's not
This
right.
was a 73-year-old elder, and clearly respect was not paid, granted, whatsoever. But we're in a time where Florida wants to ban teachers from mentioning gay and trans folks and their contributions to American life.
Hmm.
14 or more other states and counting want to ban teaching accurate American history so that Black, Brown, and Indigenous folks are erased, except to say
Hmm.
that we loved all the oppression that happened to us. And Arizona's Senate just passed a bill requiring teachers to post their day to day lesson plans online so parents can opt their kids out or in to a class that they don't want them to be exposed to.
Wow.
But y'all don't want to stop sending y'all badass kids that nobody can control to school, including you. I got one word: priorities. Nah, a sentence to boot. Homeschool your damn crumb snatchers, cause ain't nobody got time to be going to urgent care from trying to educate your badass children.
Mm-mm.
That's what we got to say on the stories we tell today. What you got on this AMC?
I'm flabbergasted. I'm still just trying to recover from all of this. This is too much. This is too much. What's going on? The first the 5-year-old, the toddler, and that teacher, I'd like to know what the root was and why that child was, I mean, so angry. And yes, I understand that it was you said
Special
that it
needs
was a
child.
special needs child. Yeah, so I understand that, but she, as you said, she was a special teacher, sorry, a special needs teacher for 13 years. So I know sometimes things can go awry, but I don't know. I mean, we're missing a whole bunch of the story. I don't know. The taller one, that one kind of, I guess the age it hits home, but it's a little
Yeah, because your
disturbing.
son is what, 4 years old?
He's 4, yeah.
Yeah, so
So
can
that
you
would be
imagine
like,
just your son next year throwing his whole body
bruh,
on the child?
bruh. Listen, I have this talk with my siblings and with my mom all the time, and I say, my kid is strong. He's a really strong kid. He's slim and everything, but he's strong. So I know if Xander was to kick someone in the head or punch someone in the throat, that it would be because he was defending himself, or that he had to, because he's a very gentle kid. He's really chill. He's pretty quiet and he's kind-hearted. So he's a good boy. But if you're gonna come for him, I think he will kick you in the throat. And if that's the call I'm getting, then that's different. But if I get a call saying my child threw a chair across the damn room and hit a teacher in the head, and then flung his body weight on top of it, like, I would have a heart attack. I don't know how I would react to that.
Here's
But
what I know.
again, it's different because this is a special needs a child, and special needs children I've seen, being in the midst of them. they can get a little bit aggressive sometimes, depending on their surroundings or what's going on or whatnot. So it can be a little bit hard to try to control them or to, keep them from hurting themselves. It could kind of go left sometimes. So you really, again, it comes down to your training. So I'm really curious to know what transpired and how that came to a head like that. The other one, that middle school shit, that kid needs a talking to, because who are you to be throwing chairs to anyone, at anyone, sorry. And then a 73-year-old substitute teacher at that? What kind of disrespect? What is that? What happened there? That's not right.
Here's what I
Mm-mm.
know. It would never have happened to Abbott Elementary Barbara Howard, woman of God. And while we laugh about that, I think
Oh
there's a
God.
generational thing. Like, I just, prior generations, I mean, obviously, the 73-year-old man who was substitute teacher, we asked some questions about, has he been teaching this whole time? This is like some latter career thing that he decided to do after retirement. But,
Mm-hmm.
like, I just know the teachers that I had growing up in school, and I went to Chicago public schools. So Chicago public schools were dangerous. Kids fought
Mm-hmm.
all the time. I was in fights. It was, it was always something happening in them schools. But fight the teacher? Fight
Yeah.
my teachers? Oh no,
Yeah.
ma'am. Oh no,
That's
sir.
like talking back to your parents back then. You know what I mean?
Like, look, and I'm old enough to remember in third grade when I went to private Christian school that the
Mhm.
teachers and the principals could get them hands with that ruler, right?
Mm.
Like, so, going way back, there was corporal punishment in some of these schools when I was coming up and
Mhm.
before. So
Mhm.
you just, there was a healthy fear of authority, or even when teachers couldn't do that, later on as I matriculated through the, school,
Yeah.
parents will beat your ass in front of the teachers in the whole classroom for disrespecting a teacher.
See, there you
You
go.
know, the parents will get you in the hallway. I saw parents. I mean, and I'm not saying that we need to go back to the
Drape
days
yeah.
of everybody, abusing their children, but there
Mhm.
needs to be a basic foundation of respect. Like,
Because
we
that's where it's
don't.
coming from. It's home,
Yeah, I mean,
right?
like, this, children need to be taught to respect their elders. I
Mhm.
mean, and I know that there's a whole generation where, that the elder respect the children. Child, I mean, unless that elder is being abusive to that child need to stifle themselves, Edith. Like, I'm showing all of the Gen X references today, baby. Stifle yourself, Edith. Like this, baby. What? That's you doing the most. I mean, my mother, I just couldn't even imagine. My mother would have whipped me so bad. I would have just no. I
I
mean, I
would have
used
just
to get in
gotten the
trouble for
look.
rolling my
That's it.
eyes.
Oh hell, don't
Listen, my
even.
teachers would
Don't
tell my
even.
mother I rolled my eyes and sucked my teeth, and it was me and her on and popping at her house when she got me
Good.
old.
You
Like,
brave.
no,
Mm-mm. Not me.
no,
Mm-mm.
not no, embarrassing the
Mm-mm.
family like that.
Nope. Nope. Nope.
Anyway,
Nope. Nope.
so y'all get a handle on your children, or we live in an age where your child can be right at home with you being homeschooled. Because they don't pay teachers enough. Trust me, I know. I
They
have a
don't,
master's
for real.
degree in instructional design, and I purposely chose not to go into education because them salaries was given. Oh no, ma'am, I earned that when I
Mm-hmm.
was in my 20s.
Yeah.
like I
Yeah. I
like
hear you.
I can't go back. I can't go back. Not to those prices. Mm-mm. I love the
No.
children, but I don't love the children enough to be poor.
I will
So
mentor and do and volunteer until my heart's content. And when I tell you, when people always ask me, "Oh, you're gonna teach?" I was like, "No, no, mm-mm.
and I'm a born teacher. Like, it's actually what I'm gifted at. But I teach
Mm-hmm.
adults, I teach artists,
Yeah,
I teach. I find other ways to use my gifts. But that money, that little bit of money they trying to get these teachers for all of that headache, and then they're gonna make their
no,
jobs harder with the anti-gay and
mm-mm.
trans stuff, the anti-black stuff. And now we got to put a day-to-day curriculum to have somebody who might not have even graduated from nothing to tell
Yeah, that's
them what
crazy.
their curriculums can be and what they should be teaching. Shaba.
They're doing the most,
Anyway,
man. Jeez.
so this is what happens when you don't give us stories to read. We start pulling
Mm.
some mess offline and going in. Now, y'all might like all of that, but we actually want your stories.
I want the
So give
stories, man. Yeah, we started off on such a good, even keel too, man. You guys were handing them in, and we were like, okay, and then all of a sudden it just went cold. So yeah, maybe we need to remind you guys. We're gonna put up our little post so you guys can, trigger them stories and get them popping. We want to hear them.
yes, we do. Well, that is a wrap for this week's Gibson Gazette. Please make sure that you are liking, subscribing, following,
Yes.
and sharing on whatever platform you're listening to or watching us on. We don't have video this time. We had some technical difficulties, so we have stopped the videos for a minute. Though we'll post, a cute picture of us with our audio on YouTube and our
There you
and
go.
Facebook, right? Like what we'll give you a little face with an audio situation until we can get our technical issues worked out. But in the meantime,
Absolutely.
please make sure you're commenting and reviewing where possible so that we can climb the charts of the various platform algorithms the show is on. And with that, AMC, you have anything else for us?
No, y'all. Do the do, and we'll hear y'all next time. Peace.
All right, peace out. Make sure. Oh, child, I can't even remember what we normally say at this time. Just good night, baby. Y'all
Good.
have a good evening. Bye.